100,000 Russian soldiers, boots crunching through frozen Ukrainian mud, charging across open fields in the dead of winter. This was Putin's master plan. Freeze the West and use the brutal cold as a weapon no NATO ally could stop. It was bold, it was calculated, and it failed spectacularly, because while Putin was counting on winter to do his fighting for him, Ukraine was... And what happened next is one of the most stunning military reversals of the 21st century. Welcome to World Brief Daily. If this is your first time here, subscribe right now, and this is exactly the kind of deep analysis you will not find anywhere else. Let's get into it. Russia launched its massive winter offensive with a single goal: break through Ukrainian lines in 100,000 soldiers to the front. The plan was simple on paper: overwhelming numbers, overwhelming force, and the assumption that Ukrainian defenders would crack under the pressure of a full-scale 100,000 soldiers walk straight into a slaughter. According to the Center for Strategic and International Studies, Russia was losing approximately 35,000 soldiers killed or wounded every single month, accelerated into 2026. Ukraine's commander-in-chief, General Oleksandr Syrsky, confirmed in an interview with the French newspaper Le Monde on February 22nd that Ukrainian forces 1,100 Russian soldiers from the battlefield every single day, not monthly, every single day. And here is the number that should stop every military analyst in their tracks. As officials, Russia sustained around 9,000 more battlefield losses in January 2026 than it was able to replace through recruitment. For the first time since the full-scale invasion began, Russia once. The Telegraph confirmed this alarming trend, reporting that Putin's forces were suffering nearly 40,000 casualties per month since November, while managing to recruit only up to total military casualties since February 2022 have now surpassed 1.25 million. More than the total losses sustained by the United States during the entire Second World War. The offensive is not just about numbers. It is about how Ukraine turned those numbers into a military catastrophe for Russia. It is about ghost units that struck from the shadows. It is about a communications blackout that left, and it is about a battlefield doctrine so precise, so ruthless, that Russian soldiers are now surrendering to drones in open fields. So let us go back to the beginning. Back to those frozen lands of Zaporizhzhia. Ukraine's elite Arton unit, operating under the Defense Intelligence Directorate, moved in coordination with armored forces and directly targeted Russian positions near Stenohursk in the Zaporizhzhia. In the southeastern counteroffensive, Ukraine's 425th Assault Regiment did something remarkable. It completely routed Russia's 69th Guards Brigade in the settlement of Chernihiv. One of Russia's main logistical arteries toward Mariupol is now in danger of being severed. And then the airborne troops arrived. Russian forces were driven out of 9 separate settlements in the Oleksandrivka, Petrovsk, Donetsk, and Zaporizhzhia, all converged. These names may not make headlines in the mainstream press, but their military significance is enormous. Ukraine is logistics arteries with drones, softening defenses with artillery, and then, the moment Russian lines show signs of exhaustion, assault groups pour through. As reported by Euronews on February 7th, that the main Ukrainian advance was recorded roughly 80 kilometers east of Zaporizhzhia city, precisely the area where Russian forces had been making gains since the summer of 2025. Ukrainian forces Kostiantynivka, Pokrovsk, and Novopavlivka fronts. The result? As reported by the Deep State Monitoring Project and confirmed by General Syrsky's statement on March 3rd, while Russia managed to February, the lowest figure since July 2024, Ukrainian forces reclaimed a staggering 460 square kilometers since the start of 2026. President Zelensky himself, for Corriere della Sera, published on March 3rd. 460 square kilometers reclaimed, 126 square kilometers taken by Russia. That is 4 times more territory liberated dropped, only 4%, which means they kept attacking at nearly the same rate and achieved almost nothing. Now, here is where it gets interesting. How does an army that outnumbering in armor simply collapse and retreat across 4 times the ground it gained? What broke Russia's winter offensive? The answer involves 3 things working together in a way no military planner in Moscow anticipated. As reported by Euronews, from the beginning of February, Ukraine's Defense Ministry and SpaceX began blocking Russian forces from accessing Starlink terminals used to operate and control Ukrainian cyber forces, then executed a masterful deception, posing as a Russian-linked activation service offering to restore disconnected terminals, gathering intelligence on Russian drone networks in the process. Devastating. As a captured Russian radio conversation published by Politico revealed in near real time, a Russian military center broadcast what might be the most honest summary of the entire war. Pigeons, radios, cables, pigeons. In a war where drone reconnaissance, artillery coordination, and logistics all flow through a single digital nervous system, this was not. Put yourself in the position of a Russian field commander in that moment. You cannot relay targeting coordinates to your artillery batteries. You cannot receive imagery from your reconnaissance drones. You are effectively blind, deaf, and mute on a battlefield where Ukrainian forces are watching every move from the sky. A Ukrainian soldier's account, published by The Telegraph, described what happened next. Intensity dropped when they were disconnected from Starlink. In 2 days, we regained Sosnivka and Dnipropetrovsk and are on the way to Huliapole in Zaporizhzhia. 2 days. The army could no longer see. General Valery Zaluzhny, Ukraine's ambassador to the United Kingdom, warned publicly that artificial intelligence and drones have transformed the battlefield so completely that as he is 25 kilometers deep from the front line, there is nowhere to hide. There is nowhere to mass troops undetected. This is the second factor in Russia's collapse. Ukraine's drone army advance on the Pokrovsk axis. Something remarkable and almost absurd appeared on Ukrainian drone footage. Motorcycles, four-wheeled ATVs, and yes, civilian golf carts. Personnel carriers that its infantry was now being sent to the front on vehicles designed for leisure. The theory, presumably, was speed and low profile. Small targets, hard to hit. FPV drone to lock onto the first heat signature. Ukraine's 79th Brigade reported that Russia's repeated attempts at direct assault using these vehicles near Myrnohrad ended in catastrophic failure. Operations into graveyards of burned-out ATVs and abandoned motorcycles scattered across open fields. The 46th Independent Airborne Brigade defending the Pokrovsk axis and infantry groups being methodically hunted. Not just equipment, also command shelters, communication relay points, and even Russian drones attempting to fly through Ukrainian airspace were intercepted, and communications go dark. An army does not simply slow down, it begins to decompose. Footage verified by Ukrainian military units showed Russian infantrymen drinking from muddy puddles on the contaminated field water because their supply lines had been cut and nobody was coming to resupply them. This is a human tragedy. Soldiers abandoned by a command structure that sent them into a kill zone as to the third factor. And this is where Ukraine's strategy becomes genuinely brilliant. Make sure you are subscribed to World Brief Daily right now and enable notifications, because what we are about to discuss is warfare that you will not see broken down like this anywhere else. While the drones hunted Russian forces in open terrain, Ukraine's Special Operations Forces were doing something even more precise, entire logistics architecture that kept the offensive alive. The footage released by Ukraine's Special Operations Command shows operations in the northern Slobozhansk front, along the border of the Kursk region, ambush of the 20th century, where infantry hid beside a road, waited for a convoy, and opened fire. In a war where thermal camera drones patrol the skies continuously, sitting still means death within minutes. So Ukraine deployed what military professionals call the METTC assessment framework: mission, enemy, terrain, troops, time, and civilians, a state's military doctrine for years, now adapted with lethal precision to drone-age warfare. Here is how it worked in practice. Step 1. Aerial reconnaissance mapped Russian convoy route where vehicles were forced to slow down and where congestion created natural target clusters. Step 2. A small elite SOF team, not a company, not a platoon, a handful of soldiers, no engagement, no firefight, pure ghost movement. Step 3. They placed powerful explosive charges at the identified bottleneck points, and then they withdrew. But here is the real strategic genius of this approach. The tactical effect, dead Russian soldiers, destroyed vehicles, is almost secondary. The real impact is when that road is destroyed, Russian forces are forced to reroute to longer alternative roads that they believe are safer. Longer roads mean more fuel consumption. More fuel means larger truck convoy. Each attack forces a cascade of consequences that multiplies the cost of every Russian forward movement. Ukraine is not trying to destroy Russia's army in a single dramatic battle. It is dangerous, so exhausting that Russian advances fragment and lose cohesion before they ever reach the front line. The psychological dimension of this is profound. According to Ukrainian units known as the Steel Border Guards, have been systematically targeting the Kursk and Slobozhansky directions, destroying food depots, ammunition stockpiles, a highly critical electronic warfare. The Four-Post State Border Service released footage showing a Russian-Grad multiple rocket launcher system, one of Russia's signature fire support weapons, being hunted down and destroyed by Ukrainian drones. When food and water are gone, when the roads you thought were safe turn out to be mined, and when the forests you thought you could hide in have drones overhead with thermal cameras, what does an army actually do? Some surrender tells you everything about the psychological state of Russian forces. The 158th Separate Mechanized Brigade confirmed this account. 2 Russian soldiers held up a piece of paper toward an overhead drone with the drone's instructions, laid down their weapons, and were taken prisoner. A Ukrainian drone operator then attached a speaker to the drone and broadcast a call for others to come out. 3 more soldiers emerged, a Ukrainian soldier having to expose themselves to enemy fire. 5 men surrendering to a flying machine. The Russian command's response? They opened fire on their own surrendering soldiers. As unique and inhumane, tells you more about the state of Russian military leadership than any battlefield map. An army that shoots its own troops for choosing survival over a hopeless charge is not a system running on fear and proximity to collapse. Meanwhile, the hardware losses tell the same story from a different angle. As of February 26, 2026, according to compiled Ukrainian military, there have 700 tanks, more than 24,000 armored fighting vehicles, over 37,600 artillery systems, and approximately 1,263,000 under the beginning of the full-scale invasion. These are figures that dwarf anything seen in a major war since 1945. The 422nd Unmanned Systems Regiment released footage showing a Russian Buk M1 air defense incinerated by a loitering munition that cost a fraction of that price. The 68th Independent Airborne Brigade published footage showing drone operators eliminating Russian shelters and heavy weapon positions described as millimeter-level precision. Even underground positions cannot guarantee safety from sensors that read heat signatures through layers of soil. And the losses are not limited to the hardware. The heavy thermobaric system known as Solntsepiok was destroyed by drone pilots from the Phoenix unit. That strike eliminated 9 Russian soldiers in a single explosion. When you add up these intercepts, the logistics attacks, the communications blackout, what you get is that massive 460 square kilometer reversal. Russia's winter offensive, which was supposed to demonstrate the irresistible power, instead demonstrated something else entirely. The mathematical limits of attrition when your attrition rate exceeds your replacement capacity. As Syrskyi stated publicly on March, don't see initiative in the hands of Russia. They have only the number of people. They have only one initiative. That at home they can control everything, the information field. So Russia can control not the battlefield, but television, lose the territory. The numbers behind Russia's manpower problem are now approaching crisis levels. As CSIS documented, Russian battlefield fatalities in Ukraine are more than 17-year Afghanistan war of the 1980s. Bloomberg reported in February that in January 2026 alone, Russia sustained 9,000 more casualties than it recruited. As UK Defense Secretary Security Conference, Russia is now so desperate for bodies that it has deployed approximately 17,000 North Korean military personnel to the front and has been recruiting citizens of India, Pakistan under false pretenses. In Healy's words, they are being sent into what he called the Russian meat machine. Russia promised volunteers from poorer regions signing bonuses of up to $50,000, so bluntly that people are realizing that it's a one-way ticket. The pool of volunteers willing to die for Putin's war is drying up, and no financial incentive can fully reverse that. Ukraine's goal, as cited by United 24 Media, is to increase Russian monthly losses to between 50,000 and 60,000 per month by the summer of 2026. At that rate, even a jet test and the flight of over 261,000 Russians when partially attempted in 2022 would not be sufficient to maintain current Russian force levels. The Kiev Independent reported that Ukrainian soldiers in a single winter month, a robotic kill zone 25 kilometers deep that never sleeps. This is the trajectory of the war as of early March 2020. Live Foundation and a member of Ukraine's Defense Procurement Agency Supervisory Board put it with striking directness in a post on March 1st. For the first time in many months and perhaps even years, he called it unambiguously, Russia lost the battle for winter, and we won. February 2026 marked the first time since the Kursk offensive of August toward control over more territory than Russia could capture. Deep State confirmed it. Syrskyi confirmed it. Zelensky confirmed it. And the footage from abandoning handwritten signs up to drones confirms it. Russia entered this winter believing it had the formula for victory. Overwhelming numbers, a frozen battlefield that disadvantaged mobile Ukrainian distant war. Instead, it discovered that numbers without coordination are just a larger target. That winter creates the same problems for logistics whether you are attacking or defending, and that the West adapted faster than anyone predicted. 100,000 soldiers deployed, 126 square kilometers gained, 460 square kilometers lost, 35,000 casual pigeons replacing satellites. Putin may control what his people see on state television. He cannot control what his soldiers experience in the field. He cannot control the FPV drone that follows a thermal signature hidden beneath a road his convoy was supposed to use. He cannot control the drone speaker that says, "Come out, lay down your weapon, you will survive." The brutal mathematics of this war are being written not in mosques of Zaporizhzhia, in the forests of Slobozhanska, and in the drone footage that the Russian public is not allowed to see. We will, of course, continue monitoring every development across all these fronts and bring it to this conflict demands. If you found this analysis valuable, and we believe you did, now is the moment to make sure you are subscribed and that notifications are turned on.